Mr. Little.
Okay, the first one is a motion to authorize to advertise the pollution control and flood reduction fee ordinance.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and just to clarify, this is only to advertise the ordinance. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any comments? Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mrs. Gatos?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Harvey?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mr. Arsenko?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye. The ayes have it.
Okay, number two, looking for a motion for one of two engineering firms that submitted RFPs, either MS Consultants or HRG, to appoint the pollution control and flood reduction engineering firm.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint MS Consultants.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve MS Consultants. Any comments, council? Seeing none, roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
Aye.
Mr. Arsenko?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mr. Harvey?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mrs. Gatos?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Okay, number three is a motion to appoint the billing entity, one of two, either the Turtle Creek Valley COG or the Monroeville Tax Office, to appoint the pollution control and flood reduction billing entity.
Can I comment on this, or?
We'd have to get a
Make
motion and a second
on.
first, and then we could have comment period on either entity.
Motion to give the billing to the COG.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve for the Turtle Creek Valley COG. Mr. Duncan, you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, I'd like to request for transparency reasons. You know, there was a lot of he said, she said, and from what I understand from our tax collector that, I mean, in equalness, if we could table this and give both entities the same material and allow them to resubmit, you know, at the same time, and that way
We don't really have time.
there would be no discrepancy. What's the big hurry?
Well, to that point, though, what was provided to
$8,000 difference.
what was provided to the COG and the tax office? Were they both proposed or approached the same way?
What is on the comparison that council received on Thursday are the items that were talked about, that was talked about with the tax office, those subjects. And
It was my impression that one entity was given the information in January, and one was just
Yeah.
recently given the information.
Mayor, may I quickly brief that?
Yeah, Mr. Harvey, please.
When the MS4 committee started, we sat down, as you can imagine, with a whole list of things that we needed to find out some basic answers to. And one of them was, wonder what it would cost us to do the billing for this project. So we asked Mr. Little to go to the tax office and find out if they could get an approximation on how much that would be, because, again, this was all the way back at the end of January, beginning of February. And they provided a rough price to that to Mr. Little, who came to the next couple meetings and provided that to us. We were just getting the basics together, and we were trying to find out what equipment might cost, what manpower might cost, the whole list and gamut of things. We weren't in any fashion appointing anything yet. Sometime after that, the tax collector advised us that he wasn't interested in having it. So we said, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Who are we going to get? And sometime later, the meeting, it was presented to us that the COG might be interested in doing it for us. So again, we sent Mr. Little off, and the COG said they would be interested, but it depended on the conditions. Fair question. Also, at some point, the tax office re-engaged and said that they would be interested. So we asked Mr. Little to set up a set of specs, if you will, of what we wanted each of them to do, or the billing.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure of. Did everybody get the exact same
Everybody got
specs
the same
at the
thing.
same time? Or not a year later, or one before
Nah,
the
this was
other?
like 6 months later.
Because then you kind of let the cat out of the bag. One comes up with a price, and then the other one just.
Well, no, but they didn't bid on the same stuff that we now had some specific.
That's what I'm saying. So there was some disparity there, you know, discrepancy or.
Well, no, the first the first price was an approximate on what it would take to do it. The second one, we said, how much for this, how much for that, how much for software, how much for manpower, how much for, and it wasn't a set of specs, it was kind of a set of guidelines. So the second prices came in, and you have them here somewhere, I do.
Yeah.
And the COG was less, and for reasons, other reasons discussed by the committee, we liked the COG's price and the COG doing it, so our recommendation to council was to have the COG do the billing.
So for Mr. Duncan's question, though, the COG wasn't given the tax office's proposal, nor was the tax office given the COG's proposal to
No.
compare.
No,
No.
no.
As a matter of fact,
That's what you were asking, correct?
I guess that's what I was asking.
Did either group
Was it
have
all
an
equal? 'Cause
advantage?
it was my understanding
No.
at Thursday's meeting that, well,
May I
Pat's here to
speak?
Well,
speak on
wait a
that.
May I
second.
speak?
No, hold on a second, Mr. Duncan. We discussed all of this in a meeting when we presented the entire program to all of council.
I agree with you
And
100%.
You never said a
ma'am.
word.
I did not say a word.
Well, this is the
But
vote.
now
Now's the
there's
time-
been
now's the
things that
time
have
for
come up
discussion.
since that
May I
meeting.
say one
Yeah.
word?
Since
Folks, if
that
we-
meeting, nothing has changed.
May I
His-
say?
Mr. Fulkerson, our tax collector, has approached me and told me that,
Well, he's never approached me.
well,
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
sorry for that.
How about this, real
Well,
quickly,
okay.
Mr. Fulkerson, you could
I
have the
have-
floor
I-
for a moment.
For a moment, I have 3 comments, if I
Go
can.
ahead.
First of all, I never said I would never have done it, because I put a request in November that we wanted it.
Okay.
So I never said we didn't want it. Second of all, I want to apologize to Mr. Little, because we talked over the last 2 days, and he brought up that we did have a meeting in January. I said I didn't remember it, and I apologized to him, because I would rather deal with the truth than anything else. And I don't think it was fair the way it went down. But whatever happens, happens. I am not going to be here calling people's names. I'm not going to be here trying to lower COG from us. I think we are worthy to take this collection. But if you guys have something else that you think for $8,000 that you should take COG and not the tax department, that's your business. But I will work with you no matter what happens, because I'm not a bitter person, and I'd rather have peace in this organization than anything else. So,
Mr.
so be
Fulkerson,
it.
thank
And
you
I
for
would
your-
rather,
thank
and
you.
after your vote, I will shake each one of your hands, because I don't want it to be a negative thing.
Thank you.
Even though you
Thank
have
you.
to realize, I brought my voice up because I was disturbed, and I usually happens. I'm not the best public speaker, and when I get
You're
irked.
passionate about your department,
I am very passionate. They do a fine job for the community.
and no one's
I thank
contesting
you.
that
I
whatsoever.
didn't say
Yeah,
that.
exactly, but we
I
appreciate
don't-
your comments.
No, I didn't say anything. I didn't bring up names, I didn't bring up anything. But I didn't think we got a fair shake, and we
So-
always wanted.
So,
Thanks.
so back to my
That's an
understanding,
accusation.
Pat,
Like the accusation.
if you would.
No.
So you feel everything was done. I need to know how to vote on this. I mean, I have nothing against the COG, nothing
No,
whatsoever.
COG does a fine job.
I just want it to be transparent and fair to the taxpayers.
We did not get a fair shake
And my
at this.
personal
Why- how
opinion-
did you not get a
my
fair
pers-
shake?
One second. I'm
How did
still
you not get a
speaking.
fair
One
shake?
second.
Mr. Wilson, just let Mr. Duncan finish his thought, then we'll go to you if you don't.
My personal opinion is, we have a tax office and a collection agency here. Why would we outsource a collection when people come in to pay their school taxes, they come in to pay all their other taxes or whatnot? And
Because this isn't a tax.
That's right,
Okay.
it's
This is a
fee.
fee.
It's a fee. But we,
And therefore, it
but
could
do
be
you- do you
perceived as a
collect
tax.
other- Okay, let me finish. Do you collect other fees?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
We
so
collect a lot of fees.
it's my same opinion there. You know, I'm just sorry. I have nothing against the COG. I
Nothing.
think they're a
No,
great
nobody's
entity.
saying-
We're not here to fight against the COG, against the tax department.
I'd like to know how he feels he was shortchanged.
I was for, do you want me to ask?
If you would like to
No, I have
answer
no
that.
problem. When we brought this out, they asked us in November, and what we finally give to Mr. Little an estimate of what he thought was, it was only an estimate, because we didn't know. Mr. Little brought out details in a meeting in January, and we did not know, is it going to be one building? Is it going to be two buildings? Is it going to be a discount?
you had so many different things out there. Mr. Little told us that he thought this was the way it was going to go down. He wasn't sure of it, but he was, and that's why when he said last Thursday when I was talking, I said to him, I didn't think we had a meeting. And he proved otherwise, that we did have a meeting, and we did go over certain things in that meeting. So I wanted to say that to the public, because I didn't want any misunderstanding. Mr. Little does a fine job, and I wasn't downgrading him and saying he wasn't doing his job.
We understand.
I understand.
But where was the discrepancy, Pat?
It becomes in January. We already sent one out, and all of a sudden, come April or May, we find out we thought we were the lowest bid at that period of time, when Mr. Little happened to tell us at that period of time. And then,
When did the COG submit their?
and then they find out, come May, we weren't the lowest. And I'm going, what happened? We didn't get any detail. We didn't get any new information. Their group asked us, because in our first proposal, we put a full-time employee there. They said, we do not want you to have a full-time employee. So,
So what I'm saying, you could put a part-time employee
oh,
to
yeah.
do this?
You don't
but
need
that's what
another
No,
employee.
but that's what we did for them. See, we were the lowest bid at that period of time, and they said, you can't have the full-time. I said, all right, we'll go part-time. And all of a sudden, we find out we're not even in the running.
Well, sir, Mr. Folks,
I know,
you're-
I'm done.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
I am
I'm
sorry.
confused.
I
you
don't
don't need to be
want-
sorry, absolutely, but we'll get the
Yeah,
meeting
you'll-
going here.
I'm sorry.
But there is, in front of you, council, there is a spreadsheet of what were the final numbers from both entities.
Right. But excuse me, Mayor, where I'm confused is, Mr. Fulkerson is saying he didn't have the correct information when he made his bid early in January. Is that correct?
No,
That's what I'm asking.
just to digress a little bit, when I met with Pat and Liz, what you have in front of you, what the criteria is actually what the criteria which was developed from that meeting. It was Liz and Pat and I talking, for instance, obviously, they're not, they're aware, but not what degree, for instance, the first thing about upkeeping the deed data that has to come out of Paul Hugis's office. Questions like paying by ACH or credit card, walk-ins. There's a lot of minor details that have to be worked out with this whole project. And this criteria that you see in the left-hand column, which I've named a few, mailings, usually a mailing costs about $6,000 with respect to postage. And one of the items that Mr. Fulkerson did bring up in that meeting was a full-time person that was needed. And I'm not going to say who was high, who was low, or anything at that point, going back 7, 8 months ago. But we talked about it at the MS4 meeting, and I come back and I talked with them, and it was put down to a part-time. Now, the same criteria, not verbatim, and I met with Amanda Settlemeyer because they expressed an interest of putting in a proposal.
Excuse me, Tim, when did they express the interest?
Well, same time, January sometime.
Okay, so
Somewhere.
it's pretty much
And I
the
sat
same
with
time.
Amanda, and obviously, she knew nothing about, in fact, at that time, the tax office had not even put in their proposal, and I went through the same thought process with her. Now, Amanda, just like the tax office, is well-versed in this sort of thing because they do billing for different municipalities, for garbage collection and things of that nature in the COG, of the 19 municipalities in the COG. So she was very acquainted with the different items here, with respect to, as I said, whether people can pay through credit card or they can pay through a debit card, who's going to handle the telephone calls, different things like that, which are particular to each municipality. Some municipalities that the COG handles, they can handle the telephone calls themselves, and the COG, they don't get any. But when it comes to billing, the people, if they have a question about the billing itself, they're going to call where they got the billing from. But if there's a technical question, that's going to come from me, that's going to come from Mr. Hughes. One of the other items was the one-time software cost in order to upgrade each entity's software. Those basically, that in an employee or an additional employee, which the COG did not need, those basically were the two items that varied the two proposals. All right, so they were put together and they were given to the, to the MS4 committee, and a decision was rendered from there, which all of council has to make a decision on that from the information that.
In your opinion, were each one of the two that made the bids, were they given a fair chance to bid equally?
Yes.
Okay.
And what I would just mention, I know we spoke about this at length. The two major differences are the cost, the final cost, $72,000 for the COG, $80,000 for the tax office. But within that tax office proposal, there is a part-time employee. It was a full-time, but now it's a part-time employee, so that would add another part-time employee to the municipality, which I think council should consider that as far as long-term costs, healthcare costs potentially, pension costs, and the costs associated with that. So I think those are the two major differences. One thing to consider also is that if the COG is off on their estimates on what they charged us, that goes back on the COG, and that's their problem. If the tax office were to be off on their estimates, that would still fall back on the taxpayers and our departments as well. So,
Okay.
Can I also mention, you asked a question, Mr. Duncan, and I'd like to answer it. You questioned, why is the big hurry? Well, one of the biggest things is the software to update all of the parcels, all of the billing, and that's going to take months to get done with the information that has to
Okay,
be
but
given. To put the billing together so that it can go out in the timely fashion that we have the timeline set for.
Mr. Duncan,
So
do you have
we
anything
can't
else?
wait another month.
Yes, I do. I didn't think that another month would make that big of a deal, because we're not under a time restraint, per se. But when you did say about a part-time employee, there are no benefits for a part-time employee.
There aren't, but I mean,
But was that
potentially
your
down the
bid
road.
with the part-time employee at the 80,000, is my question? Because I'm a little confused.
It's on the
here.
spreadsheet, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's also in there, in that building, there's two buildings.
I mean, we
I
just
mean-
hired a part-time.
Yeah, but I don't know how many
employee.
buildings are in the other one. How many did they ask for?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Two.
Two billings,
Yeah,
and
so that we
you
could-
both had two billings
yeah.
at $12,000.
Yeah.
So anyhow, back to my original tabling offer. I'm sure I won't have support for it, but I'd like to table this,
So you're making a motion to table?
and allow both entities resubmit.
Wait, can we do that when there's
With the
already
same
a
information.
motion? and-
There's a motion to table.
No,
Is there a second to table?
Wait a minute.
No, there was a motion to approve and a second.
Yeah, but if somebody makes a motion to table, it can take precedence.
Okay,
But
that's what I'm
there's a
trying to
motion
figure
to
out.
table. Is there a second to table? Seeing none, that motion dies.
That motion dies.
Now you have a motion.
There is a motion to approve and a second. I will give council one more moment if there's any other comments. So there's a motion to approve
By Mr. Harvey.
by Mr. Harvey. A motion to appoint the pollution control and flood reduction billing entity as the Turtle Creek Valley COG. An affirmative vote is to vote for the Turtle Creek Valley COG. So roll call, Sharon, please.
Mrs. Gatos?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Harvey?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mr. Ursinko?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
Nothing against COG, but no.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Mr. Little?